Hi, I'm Bob Ethington.
And I'm Nick Nicholas.
And this is From Akron and Beyond. Well, hi there, folks. How are you doing? This is Bob, and with my buddy Nick. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hey, hi, Bob.
And we have another buddy in on the show. We've decided that our guest today is a official friend of the show.
Yeah, wow. Permanent.
Because we had such a fun time with him on the first episode that we had him on. I'm talking about Mr. Dave Swanson. Hi, Dave.
Hello. How are you guys?
Yeah, real great.
Very good.
Well, this is going to be our special part 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from time to time we'll check in with Dave.
Yeah,
because he's just a font of knowledge when it comes to rock. And in the last time we talked with him, we talked a lot about his career and the various bands he's played with. Rainy Day Saints, Death of Samantha, a little bit with Guided by Voices, and his current band, the Mystery Airship. And do you have any gigs coming up with that?
It's Friday, December 6th at the Happy Dog.
Oh, okay, cool. Happy Dog.
I love that place.
Fun place to play.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And you can eat there, too, which is nice.
Yeah. You know, not to jump into anything real quick, but I'm still going to. When we were talking about, in the last show, Kevin Ayers, and we were talking about the box set. I actually picked that up last week, and I love it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you said he stayed at your house?
Yeah, he did a tour. Well, in the early 90s, a friend of mine had gotten involved with this booking agency out of, I forget where they were located, but they were bringing over a bunch of sort of, I guess you would call fringe British acts. He had booked Hawkwind at the Fantasy Theater, and I forget some of the other people, but he knew I was a big fan. He said, hey, I'm thinking of bringing Kevin Ayers over. Would you want to get involved? So I said, sure. And in the meantime, he also brought over Richard Sinclair.
Oh, from
and
Caravan.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And so this agency somehow they had corralled all these sort of forgotten British musicians.
Well, and what year, what time period?
Like 92.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. So he had booked Richard Sinclair into this place called the Gallery Cafe, which was over on East 185th Street in Cleveland. It was basically a coffee shop hangout.
Oh.
And they would play music, records or whatever. And he was in with the owner, so he decided, well, I'm going to have this show there. So he had Richard Sinclair play.
Oh, my God.
And he was promoting an album at the time.
A solo record?
Yeah. I think it was called Caravan of Dreams.
I have that.
Okay. I think that's the one. So he did a solo acoustic set, but earlier in the day when he was getting set up, he said, if there's people here who are interested, he said, I'd really like to have a jam session.
Oh.
And he was like, the guy, a friend of mine who was involved in this, played guitar, and he knew I played drums, and he knew someone that played flute, and someone that played keyboard. So Richard's like, all right, let's do it.
Oh, my God.
So after his acoustic set, we went up and did just like a half hour of improv.
Wow.
And Richard played bass. And it was just a really cool thing. I mean, this is, a million years ago, so there's nobody with cell phone cameras that captured the thing. But it was just a really cool thing, and he was a really nice guy. And then he came back again and played there another time, just solo acoustic. But in the meantime, he had brought in a couple other people in booking them. And the Kevin Ayers thing just happened, and I booked it at the symposium, at the Fantasy in Lakewood. And the way tours were routed and the way the agent worked, just by chance, the opening act was David Allen.
No.
And so it was like the two of them together, on a bill for the first time in God knows how long.
Now, Kevin, was he doing a solo thing?
Yeah,
Oh.
they were both solo acoustic things.
Wow.
And it just so happened that, to save money on expenses, David stayed with my friend, and Kevin ended up staying with me. And so it just, just by chance like that. But just a weird thing. Just the right people at the right time.
What a great story.
And whatever. But
was there any wine left in your house after Kevin Ayers left?
He did enjoy a bottle of wine, and we went out for breakfast, and I mean, it's just a laid back. He just was kind of an easygoing, like you would assume. It wasn't,
That was always kind of the story about him, was that he really was not a careerist. He was talented. Fun, he did music, but he basically enjoyed life, living in Mallorca, right?
Right. He loved writing songs and just doing his thing. And I mean, I shied away from being like, well, when you made this album, what were you, and just kind of let him be. Obviously, the other side of me would have said, come with me. We're going to go to the recording studio. And we're going to do the, But I'm like, you got to let these people just, Or
you didn't confront him with that John Cal story. No. All of you listening out there, you have to find that on your
on the cover of this album. Is this true that right after this photo was taken?
John Cal, his wife, and Kevin Ayers. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
But when we mentioned John Sinclair, and I always
not John,
Richard.
Richard. Yeah,
you're thinking the
MC5. Yeah. That was last show.
Two different Sinclairs.
Yeah, but Richard Sinclair. When I actually got to see him when he was in Caravan at the Old Agora.
Wow,
that was a great show.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I love a lot of that. Matching Mole and just all that stuff from
Canterbury's.
Yeah,
Canterbury.
All that stuff. Just really, unique stuff. But and then the one band I was in, Speaker Cranker, we actually played with Gong at some point in that, and just it's interesting how these people would morph into different incarnations of their self. As far as these solo acoustic. Now he's with the band. Now he's with the trio. Now he's with.
Right. Real quick, Bob, you're good at explaining things like this. We just mentioned Canterbury, the Canterbury scene.
Right.
Talk a little bit about it. A certain progressive movement among early rock bands, probably
England,
in the mid to late 70s.
Mid to late 60s. Yeah. I mean,
but it carried forward to the 70s.
The bands that are most usually characterized as that, the most famous one is Soft Machine.
Right.
And then and Caravan would be another.
And both of those sprang from a band called the Wildflowers.
Right.
I got that CD. That reissue.
Yeah. Seems like there's a couple other bands that would fit Canterbury, but I'm blanking on who they are now.
Well, sometimes they throw Camel in with that. And then obviously the later offshoots of National Health and Hatfield in the North. And
right. Hatfield is who I was thinking of. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, it's just kind of they kind of, none of those bands really sounded exactly the same the others, but they kind of had a similar melodic approach, but they were complex, but it wasn't virtuosity for its own sake.
No. Right. It was always about the songs.
Exactly, yeah.
But they were obviously very good players, but they weren't there to show off how good players they were. It was more,
Right. And I guess Robert
and
Wyatt
they always had a sense of humor, it seemed like, too. All the
right. Very quirky, yes, exactly. Yeah. I should also mention, we got derailed immediately at the beginning of the show.
But we got derailed by Kevin Ayers, so it's okay.
That's a good derailment, yeah. That Dave, of course, many of you will know him from his own show, Revolt Into Style. And when does that run?
Tuesday evenings from 7 to 9.
And here on the Summit. So anyway,
the first hour is a new show,
right? And the second hour is an archived one.
Cool.
Yeah, so you should check him out if you haven't heard it before. The shows are great. So anyway, as mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention this, but I'm mentioning it now. The sort of theme for today is just going to be sort of random rock with Dave. We're going to just talk about. I have a variety of questions from all over the map, and the one I'm going to start with is this. Sort of a theoretical little thing. So you like me are probably, and like Nick and any music geek, are probably occasionally asked, what's your favorite album, right? Which is almost impossible to answer. But I do have a standard answer for my favorite rock albums, and I have two.
Okay.
One of them is, so it's a tie. One of them is Funhouse by the Stooges. For pure rock, that's what I'm talking about. The second one, and this is the one that I often find myself having to defend, I'm curious to hear what your opinion is Electric Warrior by T-Rex. So, are you a T-Rex fan?
A huge T-Rex fan.
You seem like you would be to me.
I actually had a band called Rumbling Spires.
Wow.
Electric Warrior, how can you that was just, the perfect album.
Yeah.
Slider is probably my favorite. T-Rex when all is said and done. But the one prior to that, just called T-Rex, is also a great. And I mean, I love the early, folky, the Tyrannosaurus Rex stuff. I kind of cut it off after Tanks. I mean, I have those records, but he lost the momentum, I think, at that point.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
There's songs that are good, but whole albums, I think Tanks was the last real great one. But yeah, I mean, I remember buying the 45 of Bang a Gong as a kid and just being like, thinking it sounded so unique. You know?
A lot of it was the production, right? The sound of that album. I was one of the few people, I think, in America, I may be wrong, who got into that band like when they were Tyrannosaurus Rex. We've talked about cutout bins before on the show. They had some drugstore cutout bin. They had Unicorn.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought it looked cool. These guys had great hair and stuff, and bought it. And it was the weirdest album I'd ever heard. His singing is so strange.
Oh, yeah, you would not be prepared for
But it blew my mind. I loved it. Then I got Beard of Stars. I like that album a lot, too.
Yeah. It's funny being...
But then moving on, let me finish, Nick. Moving on to... when they went electric. I just thought that Mark Bolan was kind of like, he's always been my ideal of a rock star. Just this whole shtick, the way he acted. It was ridiculous, but it was awesome. It
was almost cartoonish or caricaturish in looking back at it now.
Right, exactly.
At the time, it seemed much more genuine, I suppose. But he knew what you take this. I mean, he started out basically as a male model. He was doing a lot, and then he became a mod. And he had, he also did like solo acoustic, like early Bob Dylan type stuff.
He wanted to be a star.
Yeah, he and Bowie were taking whatever path was going to get them to the finish line.
It's a good comparison.
Because then he was in John's Children for a while, not even as the lead, but as part of the band. And then the oncoming hippie scene. He trades all that in for the, acoustic guitar and, doing the folky type stuff. And then at some point, just the whole dividing line with doing Ride a White Swan, although King of the Rumbling Spires was a B-side that was the first real electric thing. But, his famous doing Ride a White Swan on television and just at last minute before going on, put a little glitter on his cheek.
Right.
And then that was all of a sudden people are like enamored with this, but he knew how to merge, I think, the past with the present with an eye on the future and sort of concocted this, thing based in like Eddie Cochran. And move it forward to the current era at the time. So
I think that the Slider is as good as Electric Warrior. I think I give the tip to Electric Warrior because it came first. That's the only reason why.
Right.
But
I guess to me, Slider just seemed not much more, but I mean, it's like everything that was there on Electric Warrior just kind of got condensed into this perfect sort of cube.
The production's amazing on that album.
And you can never top having Flo and Eddie as your backup vocals.
I know. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They were,
they were on all kinds of records, but they do all throughout the Slider. And if you listen to some of the like outtakes that have come out over the years, you hear them like basically, riling him up in the studio. Come on, Bolan, get with it.
No kidding.
Yeah, and Electric Warrior as well. They're Flo and Eddie are on that. So go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, you guys are a few years younger than me. I never really got into T-Rex in any way. My wife being a few years younger, that was one of her bands. She really enjoyed. But I was going to say, when you talk about favorite albums, it's just so hard. You have to have your favorite 10.
Oh yeah,
for me, so it's hard.
Well, then that 10 turns into 20.
Well, I was going to say I have a real, car wreck approach to reading. You see this top 10 albums of all time, top 15 whatever albums by such and such, and I'm just thinking, who's concocting these lists of, and what are your terms? Because for a while you'll see these lists and they're all variations of the same things,
right?
And then all of a sudden, that's no longer in favor. Now we put this one at number one.
Yeah. Exactly.
For how many years was a general consensus? Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the greatest album ever. Then at some point, that's an overrated piece of crap. We're going to put this one in the top. And you're just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, Revolver's actually the best Beatles album. Yeah, right. Which, that's very true. And and it's that way with all arts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, like when you were saying that, Dave, that like in movies for decades, Citizen Kane was the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
And then it got dethroned by Vertigo. And now it's
what?
I was afraid you were going to ask me.
What is it?
It's a French film that's very long and it's good, but it's kind of like, okay, most people have never seen this movie.
Right.
So
Never will.
Who's kidding who here? Yeah.
And I mean, in those terms too, as far as albums, films, whatever, it doesn't really matter if it's very popular or if it's very obscure. And people tend to forget that. They think, well, that's too popular. That can't be that good. Well, sure it can. It's just, it's how what are you judging this stuff on?
Yeah, look at The Godfather Part 1 and 2.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
popular and
exactly.
Great, yeah.
So, Dave, proverbial gun to head. What would you say if someone like me said, "What's your favorite album?" Won't let
Someone
you
like you
won't let you out of the studio until you give us an
let's make
answer.
it easier on them. What's your top 5?
Oh, God.
That's not easier. That's much harder.
Albums you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't
Your
know.
top 25, Dave.
Yeah,
in order.
Top 100.
Number 25.
I don't know that I honestly could pick it because there's so many that depend on kind of the mood you're in and where your head is,
Right.
and the time of year sometimes. I mean,
a lot
of times in the wintertime, I listen to a lot of stuff that I would call like comfort food for your ears as far as like it just suits the, and the same with, in when it's nice weather. I mean, it sounds silly, but I don't know. I mean, I suppose if you divide it into rock versus, folk versus psychedelic, whatever, you could come up with a more definitive overview. But I don't know that I have one album that I consistently say, this is the go-to. I mean, they're a perfect album. I think Love Forever Changes is a perfect album.
That's one of mine, top 5.
But I think Dictators Go Girl Crazy is a perfect album in a totally different capacity.
Right. Well, to your point, I mean, obviously I'm not playing Electric Warrior every day.
Right, exactly.
Or Stooges every day. So for some reason, those albums in my head have kind of like, the T-Rex is almost more the whole package. The Stooges is just like that album begins at 10.
Oh,
and
yeah.
ends
no, there's
at
no
like
doubt of that.
11.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's nuts. Yeah.
No, it's, and there again, that's an album that it hasn't lost any of its oomph.
Oh, no, yeah.
Over the year.
No.
It's still scary, yeah.
Yeah, when you hit down on the street, you're like, okay,
Right.
we're going.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, Pet Sounds is definitely up there.
Yeah.
Like I said, Love Forever Changes. Sparks Propaganda. Dylan, whether it's Highway 61 or Bringing It All Back Home. There's so many.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, unfair question. Nick, I guess we should ask you, what's your favorite album?
My top 5.
Top 5.
All right.
It sounds like he's got them all listed.
Yeah.
No, Forever Changes, of course. First Stooges album, first Velvet Underground album. That's a tough, what's 2 more I got to find here.
You don't have to do more.
First Roxy Music.
Yeah.
And first Eno.
Oh, there you go.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, I would definitely put Here Come the Warm Jets in my top something. There,
That's like, those 4 Eno albums that are the song albums are still fantastic.
Oh, they are.
They still don't sound like anything else.
No, they don't sound like they're from any time period in particular.
Right. No. Right.
And his approach to pop music, I think, to this day, it was totally unique.
A couple weeks ago, driving home on Tuesday night, listening to your show, you played a cut from.
Okay, yeah.
And it just fed, and you even mentioned the part, a little bit of what you're saying now.
No, I mean, it's true. He had a way of, because those songs are very simple pop songs, but there's some kind of magic spell he put over them that makes them sound like nothing. I remember the very first time I ever heard, that album, just thinking, this sounds like familiar to me, but it sounds like it's from another planet at the same time. And I mean, how could you not listen to Babies on Fire at like, maximum volume and not be worshiping at the,
Yeah, and what you mentioned, the magical touch on that. It's the same with the first Pretenders albums. Some of those albums that you just will never forget, that just have this spot in your mind and your heart. They had the total sound of the whole album.
Right. Which I think is, all these things that come out where it's the 2024 remixed version of such and such. I think if you're presenting that as an option, it's fine. If you're presenting it as replacing then forget it. It's ridiculous,
It's interesting, Dave, what you said about seasonal listening, because that's very much me.
Oh, yeah.
Like now that we don't know when folks out there will be listening to this, but as we record it, it is getting into autumn. And I always go to Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. Why, I don't know. But that I just identify it with clouds and leaves falling and stuff. And but I would never play that album in like July.
No,
probably.
no.
Yeah.
Well, and that's I think of Nick Drake in that way too, as far as it's the fall time or Fairport Convention or whatever. A lot of that stuff has that sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the winter, I mean, I always tend to listen to a lot of like Genesis and stuff in the winter.
Yeah.
And it's almost like just a blanket you put over you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Okay, now that's an interesting little question, or inspires a question for me. You mentioned Genesis. So were you ever, like, with your taste in music, were you inclusive with prog bands? Like, in other words, like, there's a lot of people who come from a more punk kind of mindset that would hate Genesis.
Right.
They would hate Yes. They would hate any of those bands.
King Crimson, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. Was that never an issue to you, or not? I'm just curious.
I mean, I grew up initially being in love with pop music. I mean, 60s pop music, and led into 70s. I mean, what we talked about before with Monkees and Beach Boys and stuff, led directly into T-Rex.
Yeah.
And led directly into, Sweet.
Right.
And other stuff from the early 70s. But because of radio being what it was, you got such a wide net cast over, you heard Curtis Mayfield next to, some country hit next to whatever. And so it all kind of got shoved at you. And, I remember hearing Roundabout as a 45 on AM radio.
Right.
And just thinking, this sounds really cool. And I bought the 45. A few years later, I see, and it was one of the first used albums I bought, was Fragile. And I'm like, that's like 9 minutes long. I'm like, the 45 was 3 minutes long. What I was momentarily kind of just putting this together.
It's Roundabout by Yes, for people that don't know.
Sorry. And I mean, I just loved it. However, whether it was the 3 minutes or whether the full version. And at the same time, I'm listening to Alice Cooper and listening to Led Zeppelin and whatever. So to me, it was just all sort of, gathering food for the winter.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as it was...
Little squirrel.
Yeah, it was all this different stuff coming at you. And I didn't differentiate between, well, this is this kind of music, which I think this is a real problem with trying to define everything. Well, that's Americana. Well, but that's post-alternative death, whatever.
Yeah.
So to me, if I liked it, I liked it.
Right.
I mean, I'm buying Osmond's 45s at the same time I'm buying, Roundabout.
See, I was we've talked about this, I think, before. I'll bring it up again. When I was at a certain age, I'm not proud of this, but it was definitely me. I was very Stalinist in my taste.
Yeah.
I had given up on rock music in the early, somewhere around 73, 74. To me, it's always seemed boring.
Yeah.
And I got way into jazz.
Okay.
And then I started listening to some of the prog bands like King Crimson, Lark's Tongue and Aspic and Red, that era. And then it's funny because we're coming full circle, because I remember for some reason I loved Electric Warrior, and I remember my friends all like saying, "How can you love that album? It's so like cheesy and basic. I thought you were Mr. Virtuosic guy and all that." And what could I say? You know,
Right,
and then
right.
eventually when I really became a punk new wave guy, you know, I kind of, you know, it was almost like re-education. I was like, you know, saying that, I hate King Crimson.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous,
Well, that was
pretentious,
a very-
and pompous. And then at a certain point, I got to where I'm like, well, wait a minute, I still like that stuff. And
Yeah.
now I like so many things that I used to be so judgmental about. You know?
When did Judy Garland come into the picture, Bob?
I always loved her. Carnegie Hall.
No, but I mean, I think, well, that was very common of the whole punk era to dismiss what had gone before and everything. But being a little younger, I guess I liked what I liked. And I mean, you know, I liked Jethro Tull and I liked Yes and I liked Genesis and King Crimson and all that stuff. And as the years went on and all of a sudden it's 77 and it's 78 and 79 and all this other music has come flooding in, I never went, got to get rid of all these things now.
Right.
I just maybe didn't listen to them as much as I did.
Yeah.
But I still hung on to those records.
Yeah.
And in fact, even saw like, you know, Yes in 77 and Jethro Tull around the same time and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I still liked the other stuff. And I didn't sit there and make a conscious, well, I'm on this side now. Whatever. It was just all music. And I think there's so much, as we've learned over time, that tied in is just part of the continuing narrative of music. And a lot of things connected to other things that you wouldn't have necessarily thought of. You know?
Right.
You know, Dave, being from the Cleveland area, when you were old enough to drive, what was your favorite record store that you'd visit?
Well, I mean, growing up in Lakewood, I was on my bicycle and going wherever I could go. I used to always love going to Melody Lane, which I ended up working at. And then there was a down on Detroit, there was a strip of stores. There was like a hobby shop, and there was a like used, like well, they had everything from clothing to magazines to whatever, like a resale shop called Elephant's Foot. And so I would occasionally find records in there. And in the same block, there was the Electric Candle, which was a head shop.
Yeah.
And eventually became a place called Daystar Boutique, which I think is still there. But he started carrying used records. And that was the first place I ever found used records. So, I mean, I would go to these any place that had records. You know, if I'm going shopping with a parent, you know, we were at a, you know, department store, find myself in the record department.
Right.
But I mean, I always loved going to Melody Lane even when I was, you know, working there. I thought it was a great store. And then finding the stores over in Coventry. I mean, the original Record Exchange, and then like Wax Stacks and Record Revolution. You know, I remember going to Record Rendezvous downtown. I mean, just all within the circle. I never went to the original Drome. I did go to the one in Lakewood.
Yeah, last one, huh?
But yeah, I mean, there was records everywhere back then. So
yeah. This is From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington with co-host Nick Nicholas, and our guest today is Dave Swanson. He of the show Revolt Into Style and of many terrific bands, including his latest project, Dave Swanson's Mystery Airship. So, okay, speaking of many bands, many shows you've played, can you pin down one show that was the most exciting, fun show you've ever played? It can be for any reason.
Good
Obviously.
question, Bob.
Yeah, it's a good. I don't know, because there's been so many over so many years. Well, I guess one that springs to mind is when there was a guy from Akron named Kevin Jr., and he had a band called Chamber Strings.
Yeah.
And he had relocated to Chicago, and that's where the band got going. He had to have heart surgery, moved back to the Akron area, and this is all like in the mid 2000, whatever, like 2012, something like that. And decided to stay. His mom still lived here, and I kind of only knew him sort of peripherally, but we became fast friends, and he wanted to get a new band together. So I put a band together. We started playing, and you know, his music was very rooted in like this classic pop, you know, Burt Bacharach meets Big Star, or something like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they had 2 really critically acclaimed albums out when they were in Chicago. And he had
under his name, just
under the name The Chamber Strings.
Gotcha. Okay.
And he had a lot of personal demons, but he had this heart surgery and was back in this area, and we ended up connecting, started this band, did a couple shows, and it was just really great. I mean, his songs were great, and he was, a great singer, great writer. And at some point during that first year we were together, I saw Paul Weller was touring and was playing House of Blues. So
that's Paul Weller from the Jam,
right? So just being a huge fan, and also just figuring, well, might as well ask. So I called the people at Live Nation or whoever it was that was promoting the show. I said, hey, do you need an opener for this? And they said, well, I think that he's got somebody touring with him, but I'll take your information, etc. And then they got back to me and said, yeah, he's got somebody touring with him, but thanks for inquiring. Like, okay. Well, like a week and a half before the show, I get a phone call. Hey, are you guys still interested in playing that show? Because their opening act couldn't get visas.
Oh.
So like, absolutely.
Damn.
So we end up opening for Paul Weller, which to me, I mean, the Jam are one of my very favorite
me too.
And real important bands in my, musical story.
Yeah.
So we end up opening for him, and the whole time I'm thinking, if he's an ass, this is gonna be terrible. So we get there, unload the stuff, walk in. Like 10 minutes later, he comes over. Hey, how you guys doing? I'm Paul. And started introducing. He's just the nicest guy in the world. And he was just the most, everything you'd want one of your musical heroes to be, as opposed to like being put off, whatever. And so that was a big key. And he actually came out while we were sound checking. He and the drummer came out and were watching a sound check, and they were out there tapping their feet and bobbing. And then he came back after the sound check and said, man, you guys are really cool, this and that, and, are you doing any other shows with us? Like, no, but we could. I mean, so it was just that kind of, I mean, it sounds silly on the one hand, but that kind of acknowledgement is like, hey, this is really cool.
Oh, no.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was one thing. I mean, it was just cool to play with the variety of people I've played with. I mean, some just for the, like, hey, do you know that we, the one band I was in, we opened for Oasis, like when they were just starting to become huge. And just a variety of people that I played with over the years. I think I talked to you last time about that Little Steven Festival.
Yeah.
Which had everybody and their brother on the bill.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of them. I have to sit here and really think as to what other ones, but that one definitely springs to mind.
So let's flip this now. Can you name one specific show that was a disaster that it was like everything about it was horrible?
Because of...
It could be anything. It could be, I mean, if I would look back over my own memories of such things, it would be because there were equipment problems or no one was there to see us or whatever,
We did a show on that, Bob, remember, about a year and a half ago.
We did,
wow.
Yes. So, yes.
Boy, I don't know. I mean, there were so many. So many where the equipment didn't work or the instances leading up to it. I don't
problems.
I don't know that I could pick one specific one. It just, I suppose those are filed in a different place in your mind as far as like they're all kind of lumped together.
They're in a drawer, do not open.
Right, just kind of lousy, and it was nothing. I can't remember any that were specifically so earth-shatteringly, terrible.
Yeah.
Like, but...
well, you're lucky.
Yeah, I guess that's, I mean, I got in a fight with the drummer from the Pretty Things.
Really?
Because...
did you say he wasn't all that pretty?
No, we the New Salem Witch Hunters, another band I played with, we were opening for them at the old grog shop, and that stage, especially at the original grog shop, was small, and he just right as soon as they got done with their sound check, was like, "I'm not moving my stuff." Like, okay, which left about a foot to set up in front of them. I'm like, I can't, and it got in this big thing of, I can't, just move it up to the side, and ultimately it came to the thing of, well, you can use my drum kit, but don't change anything. I'm like, okay, well, I can just use my snare, and I can, no, don't move anything. You can, okay. So we played our set, and at the end, of course, immediately he's up on there, like, looking things over. You moved such and such. And, this is what you spend your time doing, examining what I'm, did I move your hi-hat slightly off to the side? So,
No.
So it was just ridiculous. And, of course, meanwhile, the other guys are just like, oh, God. As if, like, he does this all the time kind of thing. So,
right.
But, yeah, that's the only thing that comes to mind as far as that.
Now, that show, was that any of the original members?
It was it was Phil May and Dick Taylor. And, I forget who the drummer was. I don't know that he wasn't an original, but he had been someone that had been with them since like the late 70s or something like that. And they were all very nice, but it was just kind of funny. I mean, I don't know. People have
Yeah, so you have all varieties of egomania in the music business, so you never know what you're going to run into. That's for sure. How about favorite concerts you've attended as an audience member?
Boy.
Again, I'm sure you can't name one. I don't think I could either, but...
Yeah, I don't know if last time we talked about it at all. The first concert I ever saw was Buddy Rich and his band.
Yeah.
And that was a great, way to start.
Sure.
I don't know. The first time I saw Cheap Trick, I was completely blown away. Just seeing a band with that much energy. And, I never got to see the original Who. Mm-hmm. So to me, that was like, well, maybe it was like this, sort of, thinking just that kind of energy and power. Like I said, I've seen so many bands over the years, and different things stick with you for different reasons, I guess, as far as that goes. Seeing Robin Hitchcock for the first time, I thought was really a cool thing, because at the time, I think it was me and Larry Collins, seemed like the only two people that knew who the Soft Boys were. And both of us played on our respective radio shows. And by this point, then, of course, he had a couple solo records out and was touring. But
where was that show?
Peabody's.
Oh, before me.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's, there's certain things you just remember as being very special at that moment in time.
Sure, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know that I could pick any one in particular. Every time I ever saw the Cramps, it was just amazing. Like I said, every time I ever saw Cheap Trick, amazing. Every time I ever saw Red Cross, amazing. So, I think, there's these things that sort of, if you hit you at the right time. It seemed like I went from loving one band to morphing into, now here's this other band, what's the deal with them? And at some point, you think, well, that's because I was younger. I'm not going to be that interested in a band now. And then some band shows up and you're like, wow, I guess I am still interested in this stuff. And
yeah, it's interesting when you just mentioned Red Cross, which I know hardly anything about. But you featured them on one of your shows recently. Right. And that's where I actually learned something.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoyed them.
Yeah,
You did an interview with...
with Steve, the bass player. I liked some of their early records. Their first EP was, Steve was 11 and Jeff was like 14. And it was kind of rooted in like a Ramones sort of aesthetic and just these... kind of fun little 2-minute pop songs. And then by the time their second album came out, it had gotten kind of weird, their approach to it. They kind of incorporated other influences, and it was still them, but it was just kind of off. And then the next record was all covers, but it was all everything from the Stooges to Boyce and Hart to, David Bowie. And I'm like, just really intrigued. And plus, by that point, they started out in part of the LA punk scene. And by that point, they had like hair down to the middle of their back, and they were wearing these like hippie glam hybrid clothes, you know, bell bottoms and all this, you know. And I was just like, this, you know, what is this the story here? And I really loved that record and everything they were sort of involved in. And I happened to be out in California. This is like summer of '85, and they happened to be playing at this club. Went and saw them, and it was really a life-changing moment. It was like, this is the band I've been waiting for, kind of thing. Like, I mean, they did a full-on. I used to say they were a cross between the MC5 and the Bay City Rollers, because they really kind of were. I mean, they had the oomph and power of like a hard rock thing, but they had this pop sensibility. And, you know, they even did a cover of Saturday Night by the Bay City Rollers that night. And I just thought, this is just the most fun band I've seen since first seeing Cheap Trick live, you know. And so I did an interview with them, and because I was writing for different magazines already at that point. And we just stayed in touch, and at some point they had contacted me saying, hey, we're going to be playing a show in New York. I don't know how they thought Cleveland was close to New York or whatever, but you know, we'll put you on the list if you want to come up. And this was when People's Express was like, you know, $29 round trip. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I go up, and they're opening for Circle Jerks, Toxic Reasons, and some other hardcore band.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, okay. So I go up there. I had friends up there, stayed with. Go to the show, and they remembered to put me on the list, and go and found them at the place called the Ritz, and the dressing rooms were up above the stage. So I went up, and we were hanging out, and they're like, "Oh, we got to get ready to go on," which at that point for them meant to start to get stoned. So they're up there, and they get ready to go, and I'm like, "All right, well, I'll talk to you guys after." They said, "Well, you can just come down with us." So I go down, and I end up sitting on the stage, but off to the side. And they come out, and they used to have a big movie screen at the Ritz where they would show like rock videos between bands. And people are out there, you know, you hear the rustling of the crowd. The screen goes up, and there was literally almost like this dead silence. And people are just looking at them. And then, of course, immediately the epithets and the screaming, the booing starts.
What?
Before they even played, because of the way they looked.
No.
Because they all had super long hair. They looked like this hybrid of, like I said, glam and hippie.
Yeah, they were not wearing the uniform.
No, they weren't part of the punk thing at all.
Right, yeah.
And so they break into their set, and then they get done with the first song, and people are just enraged. Like, you know, F you, blah, 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 blah. So being as the way they were, instead of like, oh, we better do something to make them like us, they completely played into it. We love you people. You people we're all one together, and all this stuff. And then full beers start flying at the stage.
No.
And I'm sitting off the corner of the stage watching it from their point of view. And you're just seeing these full beers hurled at the... And so they ended up doing what they referred to as a 20-minute art-damaged version of Kiss's God of Thunder. And people are just like, what? You know... And they fondly remember that show to this day, as far as just the way it was just such a turning point for, okay, we've alienated the punk people, you know, check one box there, because, you know, my problem with the whole punk thing. I love so much of the music, but it was this attitude of everything else is terrible. And now it seems like a lot of the punk people are the most teary-eyed, nostalgic of any of them. Like, they don't want to let anything go. Like, well, wait a minute. Where were, you know, don't you remember you wanted to let everything go before? That's very true. That's a very good point.
I remember in those early days when they talk about California bands, you know, like Circle Jerks and, you know, Jello Biafra, whatever. The Red Cross is always in there. In other words...
Well, they were part of, I mean,
I'm not saying they sounded like them, but they were always considered as part of the gang.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were kids, literally kids, when they started, and they've been around for 45 years. And that's why this year has been a big, you know, they have a new album, and they have a documentary, and they have a book a biography out and stuff. And so it's just interesting that still most people still have no idea who they are, but they've had this huge history, and they have ties to all these different things throughout, But just a great fun band. I mean, they just, and to this day, when they were here earlier this year, they put on a great show still.
So I want to ask you, Dave, we won't go too far into this because I don't think practically anyone listening will be familiar with this record. Most people I've asked about it don't know it, but I bet you do. Do you remember the band Milk and Cookies?
Oh, I have that album, yeah.
I think that album's great.
Yeah.
And it's funny because no one knows it at all. But
it just got reissued about
that's what I have.
5 years ago?
That's what I have,
okay.
Yeah.
I had an original one on Island, UK. It only came out in the UK. It never came out in America.
Which is weird.
In the 70s,
yeah.
What would you say? So. They're like a Sparks meets Bubblegum meets, I don't know. I mean, they're just, it's very like pop.
Yeah, very melodic, but rocking, you know.
I mean, I could see it tied in with the glam era, but it wasn't really a glam approach because they definitely had much more of a, like, I don't know, bubblegum sensibility to them. It's funny, the bass player, Sal Maeda, he was actually in Sparks for a brief period. He was also in Roxy Music. Mm-hmm. And since then, he's just been a go-to session guy in New York. But I had him on my John Carroll show one time because he has a couple books out. One is about his history as a musician, and one is about record collecting. Okay. So he could sit right in there.
Get him there.
But he's just a great guy. He actually had contacted me because he somehow would see when I would post my playlist from the John Carroll show. He's like, wow, you play a lot of interesting stuff. And so we became, online friends of that, and I had him on the show. But he still plays regularly, and he'll fill in, like I think he did an Echo and the Bunnymen tour not that long ago. Mm-hmm. And so, but he was part of that thing. And it wasn't until that reissue where more people heard of them,
That was one of those things. I don't do this that often anymore, but it was one of those things I saw at some store, and I'd never heard of them.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and it had, a sticker on it that had some sort of explanatory stuff, and I'm like, this sounds interesting. I'm going to just take a flyer on it and get it. And I was really impressed with it. Yeah. I think it's a really cool album. And it's just funny because, boy, no one knows this band.
Well, what's interesting.
Except Dave.
Yeah. Well, Dave had another one. We were talking not on the air last time we were together, just, before we got on, I mentioned Brute Force.
Oh, yeah.
And then Bob never heard of, or didn't know who the heck he was.
Right.
Just like I always heard of Milk and Cookies, don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Milk and Cookies is a bad name for a band.
It is, but I mean, I think that just someone's idea of making it more bubblegumish, more whatever.
Well, today at the record store, I came up with, I saw like in a obscure section of the record store, a record by the Blow Monkeys.
Oh yeah,
that's a talk about names.
Yeah,
but they blow in their monkey. No, but anyway, we were talking about Brute Force. But a big tell about. You had a whole story about him. You even met his daughter.
Mr. Force's daughter.
Daughter of Force. That's what he calls her. He had an album out. I don't know his early history other than he was a struggling songwriter. And he wrote songs that did get covered by some different girl groups and stuff. He wasn't part of the Brill Building, but he was part of that sort of era as far as trying to get his songs out to people. And somehow he ended up getting a record deal as a recording artist for Columbia.
Yeah.
And he had an album called Confections of Love.
Yeah, which I have.
And I Brute Force is I think how it lists on the record. And he's standing like in this, was it a garbage dump or something, holding a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah.
And he looks very straight businessman. Like
he's got a suit.
Yeah, he's got a suit. He has short hair. He doesn't look like, and in the back cover, he's like in these weird poses, like almost Shakespearean. I mean, it's just an odd thing. You're like, what is this? And I remember first coming across this like in the 80s at some point and listening to it and just thinking, is this is this a comedy record? I mean, you're just like, what, I don't even know what to call this, but I would put it in my collection in the way, the kind of place where you got to hear this. And everybody I would play it for was like, what the hell? There's a song called To Sit on a Sandwich. And I'm trying to think of some of the other,
Terra del Fuego.
Tapeworm of Love.
Yeah, the Tapeworm of Love.
And it's just this very bizarre, it's like adult pop, but filtered through the cultural vacuum of teenagedom in the mid-'60s. So he put out this record, and then that was like 1966.
Yeah.
A couple years later, somehow, he caught the ear of George Harrison, who thought this guy was a really cool songwriter. They signed him to Apple.
I can see George liking this.
Yeah, they signed him to Apple for one single, which was called The King of Pho. So if you reverse that, he would be the pho.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And, it obviously went nowhere. And it was not going to get airplay because of the, even though technically he wasn't swearing, it ends up sounds like that. And that was pretty much it. I mean, it's like, whatever happened to brute force? Well, at some point in the early 2000s, I think it was, or mid-2000s, whatever, my friend Jeff Chiplis, who's a great artist, he actually has a show at the Akron Art Museum on right now.
Oh.
He does neon art, and he does all kinds of things. It's a really cool exhibit that's on there. He lives in Tremont and has lived there forever. He's just ties to all kinds of interesting people. And one day somebody calls him up and says, "Hey, do you know anybody that in the area that repairs old musical instruments?" And he said, "Well, I know this guy, etc." He said, "Well, I got this friend of mine, and he's looking to repair this vintage organ." So the guy gets in touch with Jeff. They talk, and he in the meantime had gotten in touch with the guy who had this shop. He says, "Yeah, I talked to him. He can fix it. So I'm going to come down and have him do it. But I got to bring it because I don't want to chance shipping it." It was some vintage thing, and he was afraid jostling it around and shipping would make it more problematic. So he's in conversation with Jeff, and they're going on with this. Well, one thing leads to another, and Jeff was a leap year child, so every 4 years he has a big birthday party. So he's like, "Well, if you're coming down that weekend," he said, "I'm having a birthday party. If you want to come, maybe you could even play." And he was like, "Okay." So Jeff calls me, and he's like, "Hey, do you know who Brute Force is?" And I'm like, "Sure." And he's
You're
like,
the one person who can
he's
say
like,
that to.
So he's like, explains the whole keyboard repair thing. He's coming down. He wants to play a set, and would your band, which was Rainy 88 Saints at the time, would you guys want to back him up? So like, sure. So I mean, this is how much thought went into stuff like that. If it just seemed like a fun thing, like, okay. So he comes down and he plays it. This is the Pats on the Flats.
Oh.
And he does this first section where it's almost vaudeville. He's playing a keyboard and telling these stories and bad jokes, and then he starts like getting on the floor and doing these weird imitations. I mean, it was just an odd, it would be called performance art if you were in New York. In Cleveland, you're just called insane. But so he's doing this whole thing, and then we got up and played Tapeworm of Love. We played King of Pho, and what was the one other one we mentioned earlier on there? We played like 4 songs total, and it was just great fun. And he loved it. Because he hadn't played with a band in years, and his daughter was there with his newborn grandson.
Oh wow!
And he kept referring to her as Daughter of Force. So it was just a very unique thing that only could have happened with this cast of characters in Cleveland. And then fast forward several years, Jeff had another one of his leap year birthday parties, and we're sitting there, and I'm looking over, I'm like, that woman looks really familiar. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, wait a minute. And she had come to the party. Her dad couldn't make it that year because of something, and the kid's grown now. Of course, he's like however many years old. So just kind of a funny, full circle kind of thing. But,
so it was daughter of Force.
Daughter of Force, yes. Okay. She was, and I'm sure it's grandson of Force at this point. But yeah, he was a very nice guy. We still keep in touch randomly. Just he's, I don't know. I know he did do an interview with Ugly Things magazine sometime in the last 10 years or so.
But he's got to be pushing 80 now?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If not older, because he was a little older at the time than...
Right, sure. Yeah. I have to admit, I have no idea who this guy is. I've never seen... I don't remember ever seeing that album or anything. All your description does not ring any bells.
It's a weird thing. And it did get reissued on a CD on I don't know, it's Collector's Choice or one of those things with bonus material. And some of them were demos that he had written... there was a song called Nobody Knows What's Going On in My Mind, which it wasn't a hit, but it was recorded by, I can't remember who, some girl group in 65 or something like that.
Okay.
And had a modest sort of hit regionally. So his demo version is on there, but that would be, the most popular that he ever got in his recording career.
Right.
But,
Right. Amazing. That's an amazing story. Yeah, he sounds almost Zappa-ish in a way, but not really in terms of music.
He's not musical.
Yeah, not musically like that, but he was definitely like an ideas man.
Yeah. Right.
And I think probably would have...
Those titles sound like they could be on
he was
Mother's albums.
A satirist and also just seemed to veer towards... that side of things as opposed to music was a vehicle for him to get these kooky ideas out there. But,
this is probably the longest time that, whether in a media, the exposure of
brute force.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Up to this point in 50 years.
To email him and say, hey, you're getting lots of airtime in
Akron, Ohio.
Just funny.
It's time for you to
tour. Come back to Cleveland.
Your tour.
We're awaiting you. We're awaiting the Force.
No, but I'm sure that would be the kind of person you would get that exact reaction from, which is either, I don't have any idea what you're talking about, or, oh yeah, that record.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And there's a lot of records I'm sure we all know like that. So.
Oh yeah, sure. Little obscurities that become, but they kind of become cult. Like most people probably don't know who Wildman Fisher is,
right.
but there's people who do. And if you do, you do. Right?
How about Moondog?
Oh yeah, those
another great example.
Records.
Yeah.
But I think too, a lot of that stuff has to do with, for lack of a better term, the sort of underground hip factor. As far as if somebody deemed this worthy of making an issue out of it, like something like the Shags.
Yeah.
I mean, that I remember first time hearing that record thinking, oh my God, this is insane. This is, and recognizing immediately it's the worst thing you ever heard and the greatest thing you ever heard. Mm-hmm. The Shags, the group. Yeah. And, years later, of course, it becomes a reference point for a lot of people. Like, oh, you never heard, so.
Right. Yeah, Chris Butler of Tin Huey and the Waitresses fame, who we've had on the show. I've played music with him over the years. He was part of some Shags tribute thing where they actually recreated those songs, and it was like, if you're an actual musician, they're very difficult to play.
Yeah.
Because the chords are all wanky and weird, and the rhythm is all strange. And,
it's very, you can't. I mean, the drummer is completely in a different building than the rest of the band. She's just plowing through, and they're doing their thing. And I always used to say to people, listen to the guitars. That's how Sonic Youth learn to tune their guitars. Because it's just so off. It's just this weird,
Yeah.
And they actually reunited at some point in the last 20 years and did a show. And it's just that's kind of carrying the ball a little too far. But,
it'd be funny if they were super proficient now.
Now they're like,
they'd play a cover of Roundabout, for instance.
Exactly.
Long version.
The really long version.
This has nothing to do with anything, but when you were talking about Yes, I was remembering many years ago hearing about this friend of mine who broke up with his girlfriend, and he wrote her a letter quoting lyrics from Tales from Topographic Oceans.
That'd do it.
And I've always, that's stuck with me. I can't remember who these people are, but that fact has always stuck with me. I'm always thinking, as soon as she got that letter, she should have been like, good riddance.
Yeah, I was going to say, no wonder she broke up with him.
I remember there was even...
He broke up with her. That was his poetic way of doing it.
Oh, jeez.
God.
Yeah, I love those guys, but I couldn't even begin to decipher what their lyrics are about. In fact, I remember there was a book about Yes, and there was a story in it where some magazine I think it was in England, held a contest. If you can tell us what the meaning behind, and they had some line from a Yes song, is, you win a copy of their new album, blah, blah, blah. Because there's just like oblique, just kind of weird words thrown together,
right?
And you're like, well, it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah,
but
right.
People are trying to make it seem like it has some profound, thing behind it. And even, I forget if it was Bruford or Wakeman, when they asked him about the words, and he's like, he picked out one line, and he's like, what the hell does that mean? And he was very critical. He's like, I don't know what he's singing about, So it was obviously like, okay, this isn't lost on everybody, or it's, I don't know.
I have my own Topographic Oceans story of Yes, which is that I bought that album when it came out, and I remember very distinctly opening it up. It's a double album, of course, one song per side. So there's 4 songs on the album. And I remember there were these liner notes written by John Anderson.
Right.
And at one point it said, I forget which one of the songs it was, but it's this song was inspired by a footnote on page 49 of Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi. And I was probably 13 or 14 when I read that, probably 14. And I remember I didn't know what the word was, but I that was when I learned what pretentious was. Oh. I just remember even then at 14 thinking, what? This is ridiculous.
Well, by then he had pretty much lost the rest of the band to his whim of, because I think that record was basically him and Steve Howe.
Okay.
Concocting this, concept thing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But there were no songs on it.
No.
It was just rambling over 4 sides of, which I think is, their earlier stuff, there are good songs and there's good playing. By that point, it had just been like, oh, we're conceptual artists now, and we're...
I love the Yes album.
Oh, yeah.
That one. I think that's still a great record.
No, it is,
Sounds great, and the playing is terrific on it, yeah.
But that's, and I've mentioned this in talking whenever Yes comes up. But I mean, Rick Wakeman is
You never know when they're going to come up, yes. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw I wrote about this on the Summit website, but when they got inducted into the Rock Hall, his induction speech is the greatest induction speech that anyone has ever given.
Oh, really?
Because it's 10 minutes of stand-up comedy.
Oh, really?
He does not talk about the band. It's all just... vaudeville type stand-up comedy. And he actually did that for a while in England. Periodically, when he would do a show, he would start out with a musical thing, and then he would get up and do comedy.
No.
And he's got perfect timing, and the whole thing is very, like a smack at the pretentiousness that they were known for. It's like, here's this guy telling these just ridiculous jokes, and when the camera pans the audience, you see people are like, what? like, what is he doing? Because Steve Howe was up right before him talking about, the glories of the music within and all this stuff like that. And then he gets up there and he starts making dick jokes, basically, right at the beginning, and you're just like, where are we here?
This is Rick Wakeman doing this.
Yeah.
I've got to check this out.
Oh, he has a real interesting history as a session player too.
Sure.
I mean, but
Lou Reed,
Hunky Dory,
Hunky Dory,
David Bowie, yeah. So he was quite the session man before. Yes. Well, this has been great. We're actually out of time.
Yeah.
Looking at how much time has passed. We will do this again down the road.
Yes, please.
Because you're just such a fun guest to have on.
Absolutely,
man. Thanks for having me.
And we can just kind of talk about, like I said,
turn a mic on and let it run.
Random rock stories, yes. So hopefully those of you listening enjoyed it somewhat close to as much as we enjoyed doing it. So this has been From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington. Nick Nicholas, my co-host, is here with me, and our guest has been Dave Swanson. And we'll see you next time.